Hey, welcome to Song Tripping. I'm Jim, and I wanted to drop in for an update on a new piece of gear I just bought a few days ago, and it is sitting right here. It is the Marantz CD 60. Let me give you some first impressions here on Song Tripping. So, brand new piece of gear, the CD60 by Marantz. Let me talk about why I got this. It was almost an impulse buy, but not quite. So when I got this about a year ago, a little over a year ago, or less than a year ago, this is the Marantz Model 50 analog amp. And I really loved it. I still love it. It's a great sounding amplifier. And it takes the place of an old vintage Marantz Model 1040 amp from the 1970s that we found. My wife found it at a yard sale for $20. One of our all-time best yard sale finds. That Marantz Model 1040 has since moved upstairs to the stereo up there. And I've been slowly kind of building up newer equipment for this main room in the house, the main system. So the Model 50 replaced the Model 1040. The Model 1040 is upstairs in the second room. The turntable is over here, this Fluence RT85 with a Ortofon 2M blue cartridge. I absolutely adore that. That was really like the first upgrade piece to this new configuration. It replaced two turntables, really. I had an old vintage dual turntable. I think it was I want to say it was a 570 or the 560. I've since given that away. And then the turntable that preceded this one was the Techniques turntable, direct drive turntable, which has since moved upstairs. Actually, we don't have that connected right now, but I've kept it. So whenever I want to plug a turntable in upstairs, I can do that. This Fluence RT85 was a real ear opener. I really love the sound of vinyl on that. It pairs very nicely with this Model 50 Marantz amp. Vinyl sounds just terrific. The phono preamp inside this thing is just gorgeous. Up until now, this amp has been paired with an Oppo 570 HD CD player, also plays DVDs, but I just use it for CDs and SACDs. And I thought, this was a significant upgrade over the previous SACD player we had. It was a Sony, and then I think it was a Philips before that. But stuff sounds good, but there was something when I got this new amp, this Oppo kind of diminished for me, and I'm not sure why. It just seemed like maybe it was just the vinyl was sounding so much improved. The CD didn't sound a whole lot different. It sounded the same or maybe a little diminished. So for about a year, I've been scratching my head, stroking my chin, wondering, I wonder if I can do better on the CD front and pair something different to this. So naturally, I was looking into something that matched because, I do like the Marantz gear. I really like the look of this modern like faceplate and this, whatever you call this, steel stuff. I like the silver. The black is very nice too, but the silver is what I went with. So initially for months, I really was researching, I think it's the Marantz CD50N, which kind of came out around the same time as the Model 50 amp. And that is both a CD player and a network streamer. And it includes the Hios app for streaming. And I was pricing that out, doing some comparison shopping. And at one point I came pretty close to buying it. And then I found there was an open box special. I think it was on Music Direct. Almost pulled the trigger on that, but I hesitated and lost out on that. And then very soon after that, the tariff malarkey kicked in, and they hiked the price across the board. It doesn't matter what retailer you shop at. They hiked the price of that CD50N to hundreds of dollars more. I think it may be as much as $500 more, at least $300 more. So that really scared me off that. And I wasn't quite sure I needed the streaming features because I have an iFi Zen DAC down here, which I really like. And I have no reason to really swap that out. And we also have like a Wi-Fi DAC, the Chromecast audio, those little hockey puck things. So we have one down here and one upstairs. So if I want to stream over Wi-Fi, I can do that. The iFi Zen DAC is a USB connection off of your computer, which is why this Chromebook is sitting up here on top. That's become like the little dedicated streaming station. And so anyway, long story short, I just said, I'm not going to pay like about $2,000 for a CD player. And then just recently, I guess I was shopping, Christmas is rolling around soon, you start thinking ahead, you want to build your little holiday wish list. So I thought, I wonder, I wonder if there's some Marantz CD solution, out there, or I'll see what the prices are looking like. Maybe they came down. Well, they didn't come down on the CD50N, but I did see the CD60 for sale, which I didn't really pay much attention to before. And I don't know why, because this really fits the bill for me. So basically, I'll get to the two big drawbacks first of all. The first drawback is that this does not play SACDs. Doesn't support that format. The Oppo does. My Sony CD player, the 5-disc carousel upstairs, does support SACDs. So I thought, well, why do I want to get something that doesn't support SACDs? And then the second drawback was this doesn't do any kind of network streaming at all, like the CD50N. But as I dug into the specs, I realized in a lot of respects, the DAC chip is almost the same version as the CD50N. I think it's a ES, like a Saber DAC. I'm not good on the technical details, but you can research this. But basically, it's almost the same chip. But I think the CD50N is maybe a later version of it, but it's essentially the same. The technical specs are, in terms of sonics and all that, are almost identical. So my theory is, don't quote me on this, could be wrong, but basically this seems like the CD50N, but without the network streaming capabilities built in. In a lot of other respects, it's very similar. And it's half the price of the other one. So that caught my eye. And then I just thought, well, it also has a USB port here, a USB-A port, so you can plug in a thumb drive like this. Not all the thumb drives I have here worked with it, so you have to be careful about that. And they have to be either FAT16 or FAT32 formatted, and you plug that in the front and you can play digital files, and it's pretty good support for different types of digital files, MP3s and M4As and FLAC and DSD files and things like that. Again, research it yourself to get the exact specs. But that's a nice add-on, something I'm not going to do necessarily a lot, but it's a nice feature to have. I'm glad it has it. Rather have it than not have it. But basically, I just wanted a CD player that hopefully would sound better paired with this than the Oppo. And so, long story short, I rationalized it for a couple of reasons. One is we've got the Christmas season coming soon, so I thought I want to get in early on this train and just sort of spring on it before things start, like going out of stock. So that was one reason I wanted to jump on it now I could afford to do it now too. Obviously, I wouldn't buy something I couldn't afford, so I could just pay for it. And then I had to just reconcile myself to the SACD issue. And here's what I thought, and I came to this conclusion that it wasn't that important. So all the SACDs I have, and I don't even have that many, they all are hybrid SACDs. So they have a CD layer, a Redbook CD layer, so I can just play them like any old CD. And when I've done like back and forth testing and things, I can't say that like SACDs have ever won me over the SACD layer. Like, I don't even know if I hear that much of a difference between the two. Maybe a little bit better definition, articulation, and that's about it. But I don't have a whole ton of SACDs. I probably have about 1,500 CDs roughly in the collection, and of those, maybe 25 are SACDs. That might even be too high. Might be more like 20. So am I going to hold the rest of the CD collection hostage just because I can't play these other SACDs on this machine? And I'm not getting rid of this Oppo either, so I can always play SACDs off this. And the Sony machine upstairs plays SACDs. And I don't have any plans really to get rid of that for the time being. So anyway, I rationalized it and I said, you know what, that just doesn't matter. So let's just make the decision. Let's make an executive decision that the SACD thing isn't a problem. That just doesn't have to be at issue here. I don't really plan to buy new SACDs much anymore. It's not something I'm collecting anymore anyway. I've even stopped buying CDs, so I'm just enjoying what I have. So I'm like, well, since almost everything I have, you know, probably more than 95% is CDs, Redbook CDs, let's just maximize that and not worry about the other 5%. Okay, so that's why I got it. And I found an open box deal at Crutchfield. Crutchfield, they call it scratch and dent. So I took a chance. I saved about $110 on that. Long story short, I got this unboxed. I don't see any scratches or dents on this thing at all. Like, it's just a brand new condition. I'm really glad I got that. They have a generous return policy. I think currently it runs into maybe like mid-January 2026. So that was the other, thing that sealed the deal for me. Is like, well, if I have buyer's remorse, I can just always send this back. I'll save the packaging. And what do I have to lose, right? These are the things consumers tell themselves when they want to splurge. So it is a splurge. I feel a little bit guilty about getting this when I didn't technically need it. All right. So what matters now is the sound. So we got it, we unboxed it, we plugged it in. You notice I didn't disconnect this yet. So what I've been doing is a lot of A/B comparisons between the Oppo and the Marantz CD 60. And I'll just give you some early impressions. I'll probably update this video once I have more burn-in time. And by burn-in time, I really mean burning my ears in to getting used to the way this thing sounds. But the first impressions were actually not that impressive. So when we went A and B, I'm like, I don't even hear too much difference between the Oppo and this. And if there isn't much difference, why keep the new one? Like that, those thoughts were starting to swirl around in my head. And I think the first CD we played was one I just reviewed called Autumn by George Winston, which is solo acoustic piano music. And when I did my shootout between CDs and vinyl, like the vinyl I thought was like very superior to the CD. But that had been the most recent CD I listened to. So I'm like, I'm just going to put this in this player and try it. Sounds fine, right? but it didn't really sound too much different from that. So we played several more CDs. We played some classical, and I was also playing CD layers on SACDs, couple classical ones like, and both kind of chamber music, and then also like a couple Mahler symphonies, and sounding good. The more I listened to the CD60, the more I liked it. But what really clicked for us was when we put on Roberta Flack's album Quiet Fire, which I have in a one of those original album series 5-packs with the mini LP sleeves. And that CD sounded incredible on here. It really, really sounded good. And one track in particular jumped, and that was Bridge Over Troubled Water, which is just an incredible cover by Roberta. And you could just, the sustain on the piano, and like you could hear when she kind of draws out these syllables and like bridge, and then you could hear her, the bridge at the end of that, like so clear. And because this was a more kind of a complicated mix, like not just, but that song's not exclusively solo piano, it's got some other stuff going on like strings, but other tracks, you know, it's more of like a full band and solo instruments and stuff. Like every instrument like had its place in the soundstage, very distinct, lots of separation between the instruments, really nice stereo spread, very nice left-right spread. I wasn't totally getting like the front-back depth that I was maybe seeking. And but you know, my wife started to hear that on some songs, and she's got better ears than I do. But it really started to win me over with that album. And then we listened to, you know, a few more things. I listened to Linda Ronstadt and Anne Savoy's album, the Zozo Sisters, Adieu False Heart, which is kind of like an Americana, Cajun tinged album. Really, really good album, by the way. That sounded nice. Everything I've thrown out. We played some Moody Blues, like one of the older CD versions of On the Threshold of a Dream, which frankly didn't sound as good as the vinyl version we had played a few nights previous, but that could be just due to the CD mastering. It was not bad, but it wasn't stellar. Like the Roberta Flack was the one that really popped, and thought, okay, now I'm hearing what this CD player might be capable of. I'm planning to keep listening to a different variety of music. I haven't tried any jazz yet. We'll see. But yeah, now, so what I'm hearing with this CD player versus the Oppo so far, and again, these are early impressions, I have to say, this Oppo still sounds really, really good. Like, I have no intentions of giving it away. It is a contender, but I am starting to hear some differences. Now, whether we prefer one over the other depends on what your tastes are, but here's what my early impressions are, just comparing the two. The Oppo actually, to me, sounds a little warmer. It's a little more like blended with the instruments, so it kind of presents the sound in, if you want to use a pejorative term, it might be more smeary or blurred presentation, but there's a positive spin on that too, where things kind of cohere really nicely, and that's kind of, there's a nice kind of depth and sweetness to the sound on some CDs. Whereas the CD60, I think I was expecting it to sound warmer and sweeter, because that's sort of what you expect from like the Marantz classic sound. I've never owned the Marantz CD player before, but this is just what I've read, and based on how their amps tend to sound. And I don't think I would characterize it that way, at least not yet. Now, we'll wait for the burn-in period. Maybe I'll change my mind. But what I do hear that I really, really like about it is precision, transparency, incredible left-right spatial field, like dynamics. The dynamics are stellar. You know, like there's the feeling of going from the soft to the loud. When the loud comes in, it's very, very impressive. But then you can still hear the soft passages, like with great articulation. Like the transients are probably better on this than on the Oppo. But the Oppo is still like definitely arguably on a par. Like, but those are just like the first impressions of it. I definitely like the CD60 enough to keep it. I don't have any, I don't think I have buyer's remorse. That first night of panic of thinking like, oh, this isn't even that much better. If it is better, I don't even know if it's better. That has waned. And now I'm realizing this is a really good quality CD player. I think my ears are going to get used to it. It seems to be pretty well matched with this Model 50 amp. The look, the aesthetics, clearly the Marantz is the winner. The Oppo just doesn't quite match that. The Oppo, you actually have to hook this up to a little video monitor to like use some of the special features of it, which is very annoying. Whereas this has a nice display and the remote control, which is right here, kind of like that Marantz universal remote. That, you know, has kind of everything you need. This doesn't like do a ton, but like if you want to play the USB stuff, you can control it from there and you can see everything. So that functionality is better. There are two filters here. There's a default filter and then a second filter. I'm not hearing a ton of difference between the two, but both me and my wife kind of agree that we prefer the default filter one. But again, I have to listen a lot more to like even figure out what the precise differences are there. And I did have to EQ a little bit. So, you know, on the, I sort of have my bass up to around 2 and I keep the treble sort of flat, on the CDs. And, you know, that kind of gives it a little bit of warmth. But on the whole, I think I'm really glad that I got this. Like it's a nice addition. And now I can move this Oppo, once I'm done all my A/B testing, I'll move this Oppo to our upstairs stereo. I remember this paired really, really well with the Marantz Model 1040. So I'm looking forward to like that marriage reuniting. And things are going to sound awesome up in that other room. So now I've got two really solid stereo systems. And to be perfectly honest, I'm done. I think I'm done with upgrades. This Fluence RT85, really couldn't be happier with it. Love the Model 50. Starting to like the CD60 more and more now that I have it. This guy is going to go upstairs. I've got my streaming figured out with the Zen Hi-Fi DAC. And this multi-year project to upgrade the stereo is essentially complete. So now I'm just going to enjoy some CDs. I'm going to give Wind and Wuthering a try today. I'm going to listen to 2 different CD versions of it. Maybe I'll do a shootout of Wind and Wuthering. It just seems to be an appropriate themed album for an autumn day here in October. That is my roundup, my first impressions of the CD60. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you have this amp, what are you hearing in terms of sound signature? And you know, how does it compare to other CD players that you have? Are you happy with it over the long term? Or you're not happy with it? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Probably come back with an update in another few weeks, and we'll see how this thing is holding up over time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.